Approaches on the Space Shuttle Challenger disaster. Challenger launched on January 28, 1986. It was NASA's second orbiter and their 10th mission. There were 7 astronauts on board, one of which was a school teacher. The flight's total duration was 73 seconds. After the 73 seconds, the Challenger exploded, causing the loss of lives of everyone on board. The main issue with the Challenger was the O-rings failed due to the cold weather conditions of that day, and this is the focus of our analysis. There were 4 key people involved. The first is Alan McDonald. He was the director of the project. He ties in the situation as he knew that the O-rings were not suited for the cold weather and had initiated a redesign effort about 9 years before the launch, but never pushed for it to happen. Next, we have Roger Boisjoli and Rogers Elbing, both engineers who knew about the issues with O-rings. They tried to delay the flight to fix the issue, but NASA had urged their engineering group to ignore it and ran with the launch. Then the last person involved was Joe Kilminster, who was the manager at NASA. He was the engineer and decided to sign off on the document despite knowing the issue. Now we'll take a look at the ethical dilemmas. I just wanted to note that despite this being in the United States, we're going to perceive it under Canadian ethics. Section 72.2.b was broken due to the fact that the lives of the astronauts were in the hands of the NASA engineers who knew the low temperatures were bad for the launch, but they launched anyway, causing the death. Section 72.2.c was broken during the day of the launch, where key personnel who waived the safety limitations on the low temperatures launched. However, these key personnel were not made aware of the previous night's conference, in which Joe decided to silently approve the launch despite the feedback from the fellow engineers and knowing the risk of the O-rings. Here are some alternatives to the situation. One we came up with was for the 2 Rogers. If they bypassed the NASA Level 1 management and went straight to the key personnel, there may have been a possibility that they would not have bypassed the temperature safety restrictions. There's also a possibility that since NASA management ignored the advice to cancel the launch, the key personnel would have agreed with the decision. The next is for Alan, who tried to do the redesign but failed. He should have reported it to the regulating body or higher-ups at NASA. There is a high possibility that the redesign effort would have begun long before 1985, giving them sufficient time to come up with the redesign, thus preventing the disaster. The consequence for this is that he becomes a whistleblower and puts his current job and any future employment at risk. Now we come to the end decision. We came up with the final end decision would be that Alan McDonald continues his effort for the redesign initiative. If this effort is unfruitful, he reports the situation to the regulating engineering body, hoping that this report will allow them to begin the redesign and implement it in time. If this does not work, the final option would be for the O-ring engineers, the 2 Rogers, to bypass NASA Level 1 management and engineers to speak directly to the key personnel and inform them that the launch is a bad idea and present the risk of the O-rings.
This case deals with tort law, which does not require contractual agreement. The 3 tests to determine tort are: is there a duty of care owed, is there a breach of that duty of care, and are there damages that occurred? Historically, the principle of tort was proven through Donahue versus Stevenson. Miss Donahue fell ill after drinking a beer bought by a friend that had a snail in it. She then sued the beer manufacturer without having a contract and won the case. Furthermore, Ferris versus the United States is also legal precedence because Ferris was killed by a fire while in active duty in the service of the United States due to the negligence of the government. Being a military officer, his lawyer could not sue the government for the death caused by negligence. The plaintiffs in this case are the families of the astronauts and the general public. However, we shall focus on the families. The defendants in this case are NASA, Joe Kilminster, Martin Thorkel, and Larry Molloy. In terms of the 3-point test, there was a duty of care owed by all the defendants to the families to ensure that all the parts of the space shuttle functioned properly to safeguard the astronauts' lives. The duty of care was breached once all the defendants allowed the launch of the space shuttle despite knowing the O-rings would potentially fail. As a result of the breach, the astronauts were killed. NASA cannot be sued by federal employees for wrongful death according to the Ferris Doctrine. Therefore, only 3 of the 7 astronauts can sue the government. Joe Kilminster is the most liable because he was an engineer who signed the recommendation to launch the space shuttle despite the evidence. Since he is an engineer, he is held at a higher accountability. Larry Molloy is liable because managers do have the responsibility to ensure employee safety in addition to company success. He is not as liable as Joe Kilminster. Martin Thorkel is liable because of the faulty O-ring designs. The government contracted defense restricts the Navy SEAL astronauts from suing the company. In terms of damages, the plaintiffs can claim general damages for the loss of their loved ones plus emotional trauma and claim punitive damages for negligent behavior of the parties involved. As for the decision, the court would find Larry Molloy, Joe Kilminster, and Martin Thorkel guilty, and therefore the plaintiffs would be awarded the damages.